Good morning and welcome back to the 37th Space Symposium. I'm Rich Cooper with Space Foundation, joined by Brian Berger of Space News and Dennis Huspany of the Denver Gazette. It is the last day of this week's program, and it has made news here, nationally and around the world. Again, when you bring the assembly of what is literally an Epcot of space internationally, as well as from the civil, commercial, military, research, exploration communities, you know you're going to make news. Some of the big takeaways that we'll see for this day, again, I think we've heard this theme of a supply chain issue, and that supply chain issue is workforce. You're going to be hearing a lot of that on today's agenda with a number of speakers. That seems to be an echoing refrain that we've had every day. Some of the highlights that we want to highlight for you, our audience, today we'll have the Women's Global Gathering, which will highlight a number of the women's leadership that is occurring in this community, how that is growing. A special feature of that will be we have leadership from the U.S. Mint that is going to share and celebrate the Sally Ride Quarter that was recently issued by the Mint, March 21st. Hopefully you've had a chance to get a hold of that, but it's always great to have a member of your community celebrated as Sally Ride should be. Again, we'll also have the Space Technology Hall of Fame. There are 3 new technologies entering this year. We have CubeSats, we have Beowulf computing, and then we have bubble technology, which is used to protect astronauts and others from radiation exposure. But there's a lot of stories that are coming out. I'm going to start, Brian, with you. Brian, what are the stories that you and your team are reporting on?
So one of the big themes this week has obviously been security. You know, this has very much been a national security space symposium with a big commercial overlay, if you know what I mean by that. Mm-hmm. There is a willingness for military organizations, intelligence organizations to work with the commercial sector. We reported yesterday out of one of the breakfasts that, in fact, in the lead up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. intelligence community doubled the amount of commercial imagery they were buying and piping to Ukraine for assistance. That story hadn't really been told before. We kind of assumed that was going on, but we really didn't know. We're also hearing a lot about if you're going to have commercial players in the sphere, they need to be defended. They need to be defended really well. They need to be defended against kinetic attacks. They need to be defended against cyber attacks, cyber being top of the list right now. Right.
And when they were piping that commercial imagery to countries, they were also piping it to media.
Well, for sure, yeah.
And that, I think, is that's a unique weapon. Certainly the information warfare that's been going on here.
Yes.
When you have day after day progress images of a 40-mile convoy going nowhere.
Right.
And recognizing this is not a camping expedition. These are people are up to something, whether they can get there or not.
Yeah.
Dennis, what are you and your team at the Gazette also report? What are you guys reporting on this week?
Well, being a business writer from the Denver Gazette, I was really interested in financing small space companies, and so got to hear from the head of RBC, which is financing the Air Force Academy Visitor Center that's going to be developed up north with multi-use office and other things. And he was talking about how it's kind of a model for you really want to do the public-private partnership. So it's federal land, but they'll be leasing it to the developers that are going to put a hotel, the visitor center, office space, retail space up there. Also, it talked about perhaps getting some more tax credits for people that are investing in startup or entrepreneurial type companies. So that's been really fascinating for us to learn more about and educate our readers more about. Also, I'm working on a fun little feature today. I'm looking at the swag. Everybody knows and loves the swag, right? That you bring to the Space Symposium. So I'm talking to these companies like, how do you measure your ROI on this? And it's all about the branding. It's about getting your name out there, and it's about starting conversations. You know, maybe some of the swag is not useful. It's toys, it's little rockets, it's little fans, it's little lightsabers, but they're getting it for their kids, and meanwhile they're talking to these company executives about what they're doing, and so it's really just a conversation starter, and everybody has a lot of fun with that.
And getting business cards and LinkedIn connections.
Absolutely.
I want to pull the thread a little bit on the business piece. We had the governor of Colorado, Jared Polis, here this week, who stopped by the Colorado Aerospace Pavilion there. Obviously, Colorado is a major player within the aerospace community. What are the next steps that he is looking to take to secure Colorado's leadership?
Well, first of all, they rolled out a new marketing and branding campaign called Aerospace Colorado, and so they are looking to make sure that gets the unified voice from the state of Colorado about all the assets that we have to deliver and why this is such a good place for aerospace companies. He also talked about how their Office of Economic Development and International Trade has been giving millions of dollars of tax credits for companies to either locate here or expand here. So I think they really want to work more on that that project for improving tax credits and presenting the unified voice internationally about Colorado and its aerospace culture.
So that's going on in business in Colorado. Did you see any other sort of business development type of stories?
Well, sure.
That are going nationally or internationally?
Well, yeah. So one thing that's happening is NASA has reopened a competition to build a second Artemis lunar lander. And we're not taking for granted that the teams we saw the first go around where the award went to SpaceX are going to remain intact this time. There's a lot of conversations taking place this week about shuffling some of those rosters. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. So that's definitely kind of broader than, I guess, just Colorado. There's plenty of Colorado involvement. What else did you have in mind?
And well, the competition is real. I mean, we have states and countries that are all competing for this business. That is not going to go away. I think that is only going to increase because people see what's going on here and they want to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We have new rockets coming down the pike. There's a lot of new launch vehicles in development that are expected to make their debut. There's going to be an industry transition from established workhorses like the Ariane 5 and the Atlas 5 to the new generation rockets. We're seeing something similar happen on the ground side, and we're seeing similar things happening on satellite as well with mega constellations. How many of these mega constellations are going to finish deployment, enter service? Right now, the ones we have up for LEO broadband are SpaceX's Starlink, and we have OneWeb, right? But we had one of the biggest stories this week was Amazon announcing that they had ordered 83 launches to put up their Kuiper system of over 3,000 satellites. Has a lot of ramifications. There's a lot to talk about and follow in the days ahead.
Oh yeah, United Launch Alliance was super stoked that their Vulcan is going to be taking those up there. So that was big news for Colorado for sure.
Sure, yeah.
So both of you guys have been to your share of symposium. How many have you been to, do you think?
I don't know. I've been coming off and on since around 2000.
What about you?
This is only my second one. I've only been at the Denver Gazette for a year and a half.
Okay. So how does this symposium compare to the others that you've been to?
It feels big. I think we're going to need a bigger boat at some point. The exhibit hall has plenty of room for folks, although there's more people who want to exhibit here than are getting in.
There's more people that want to get in.
Right. In terms of being able to walk around here, that's great. But busting at the seams in some other ways, not just the Broadmoor, but the city of Colorado Springs. I'd like to see that become more accommodative of everybody coming in here. But the great thing that we're seeing here in terms of just the number of companies, the diversity of companies, you're seeing competition not just in very limited parts of the space industry. There's competition everywhere.
Right. What about you? You've been to two.
I've been to two, but I've been asking a lot of folks about, please compare this one to the ones that you've seen in the years past, and agree with you, Brian, that it feels big this year. They don't know if it's the biggest yet, but they're definitely saying that this is akin to the pre-COVID symposiums that have been going on. They really appreciated the layout this year. They love the way the big exhibition hall and for the smaller companies was set out, and they said it really improved the flow of foot traffic.
Right.
Really happy to see that. So they're hoping to see, similar going forward.
That was feedback that we took in from Space Foundation when we did this past August. Again, you learn by doing, and it was a brand new facility, and so we've made those adjustments. Yeah. And again, we're going to learn from doing this when we do our after actions, and again, look to make the symposium experience even better. So those are your sort of takeaways for the week, but we're going to be getting together April of next year, April 17th through 20th, when, again, we will bring the world back together here in Colorado Springs, back here to the Broadmoor campus. But before then, I am going to ask both of you guys, what will be the next big space story between now and then?
Right.
And now that we have this on tape, I can hold you accountable.
Yeah. So I don't really do predictions, right? Because I'm always surprised.
That's a dodge.
It is a dodge, I guess. But the fact of the matter is we wait and see what happens. And there's a lot of things we're going to be watching. That launch vehicle transition is huge. Delivery on a lot of obligations that folks have made in terms of putting up satellites. We're going to see how the supply chain issue works itself out as folks try to kind of divide themselves from any sort of supply chain interaction with Russia and any nations that decide that they're going to remain in that camp, which is going to be a small list. GeoInt, that's top on our list right now, just because that's the next big thing coming up for us. And we had a lot of questions asked this week about what this merger of commercial and national security assets, what it means in an operational capacity, what it means like in a rules of engagement capacity.
Right.
A lot of questions asked.
And competition.
Yeah, not answers yet though, right? And so that's one of the unfolding stories we're going to be paying close attention to this year. Probably a million other things. Just take a look at what we put on the website this week. It's a smorgasbord.
Well, again, that merger between commercial and national security, and again, how those companies compete, because as you have new vendors come about, they're going to want to get in there, but if it's a locked room that they cannot get into to compete, that makes a challenge. And as you said, they haven't figured out the rules.
Yeah.
So what's the next big space story?
So everybody in Colorado is waiting with bated breath. The elephant in the room is obviously where the U.S. Space Force HQ. Is it going to stay in Colorado Springs or is it going to Alabama? So I think we're going to have obviously an answer on that, hopefully in the next couple months. Hopefully that doesn't take a year for itself to play out. We are also looking very closely at the growth of Blue Origin in South Denver. They're working with Sierra Space on the orbital reef, and rumor has it, some sources have said that those companies are looking for some runway space around the Front Range area. So we're keeping a really, really close eye on those two for sure.
And who knows what will happen on that one next, and that'll be interesting to watch. I'm not going to put you guys in that pool and not jump in myself. I'm going to say, as far as the next big story is, I think we're going to see a big breakthrough with the Webb telescope. I had the fortune of walking around yesterday a student journalism crew from a local high school, and was stopping by the Webb exhibit, and I was telling them that when I was a senior in college, just as the Hubble first launched, and I said this was a spacecraft that literally rewrote every astronomy textbook shortly thereafter it being calibrated and working, and again, the history that it really unfolded for us. I think Webb is going to be that game changer again, as what we're seeing since it's unfolded, it's at the right spot and it's working, and I think there's a lot of excitement to see what's going to come out of that. So with that, we will see you next April here at Symposium. And in addition to that, you can keep contact with us at Space Foundation via all of our social media outlets, but you can always follow what's going on with the global space ecosystem at spacefoundation.org. My name is Rich Cooper with Space Foundation. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Dennis, for joining me. Thank you for our audience. Thank the crew who's made this all possible. Have a great Symposium day, and we'll see you next year.